Hello, I'm Keith Hilson with the Schmidt Music Trombone Shop, back with another daily practice tip for you. And today I have video number 2 of our staccato articulation series here. Now, in the last video, I talked about the overall concept with staccato articulation. The fact that it's not just short, that's not what we're going for, it's separation. And how we can create some of that separation, in particular, the role that air can play in that. Now, this concept works really well in a lot of settings where we actually have time to create that space. So it can be, any variety of different tempos. It could be if we have, separate notes, for example, if we're a tuba player, if we're playing a bass part and we're playing on beats 1 and 3. Whatever it might be, but we certainly run into situations where we have a staccato articulation indicated to us, or we want to play it staccato, but there's not the time to create that separation between the notes. So how do we play staccato in those kind of settings? Well, now we can certainly go ahead and try to apply some of the ideas that we talked about yesterday with that air support, the ho, ho kind of sound where we're creating the separation with the air. But A, it's an awful lot of work, and B, it doesn't sound all that great. There's not enough time for us to create that space with the air. And so how do we make that transition? Well, in this case, we actually stop creating the separation with the air and we start creating the separation with the articulation. This is something I run into a lot with younger players where they're doing a great job of applying this concept of that airspace, but we get to a certain tempo where it's too fast to do so, and all of a sudden, again, we're losing control. We don't have the response to the beginning of the note. We don't have the core, the centering to the sound, because we're trying to do all of this really active work here. At a certain point, when you get to a certain tempo, there is the space, the separation that we are looking for can be and really should be just created with the tongue. Now, the difference here is we're still using incredibly active air support, but it's going to be more continuous air. When we get to a certain tempo, like what I'm actually thinking is more of a legato airflow. In other words, that air is a continuous stream through there. And then what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to use as light and as clear an articulation, a syllable as I can to separate that airflow, but always having that support behind it. One of the things when it comes to staccato articulations or any more, active, harsh articulation is we can start to use too much tongue. Just like anything else, the tongue should be used as little as possible. I always go back to the great Kari Sundstrom, second trombone of the Minnesota Orchestra, who told me the tongue is our enemy. We only want to use as much as we absolutely have to. If we're thinking too hard and too harsh with the tongue, all it's going to be doing is stopping the airflow. Now, yes, we want to be stopping the airflow with the tongue, but it's not stopping, it's really just more separating. If we're trying to go and trying to be too heavy with it, not only is it going to be much more difficult to articulate the tongue at the proper tempo, but we're going to be disrupting that airflow too much, and what we're going to get is a really thick, thuddy, heavy sound that's likely not going to be in tempo. It's blatty, it's harsh, versus trying to use a really thinking about just the tip of the tongue. You can use the imagery of using like a one taste bud at the tip of your tongue, just going off of the back of the teeth, as little as possible with that air supporting behind it. and so on and so forth there. Where is that crossover between using that air separation and moving to just the syllable, the tongue articulation, creating that separation? Well, that's something you're going to have to figure out for yourself. But it's something to be aware of. And again, this is another item we can add to our toolbox here as well, knowing when to shift from one to the other and being able to use these different variations in that staccato articulation to create different effects. Now, quick reminder, just like before, this concept is, in a certain way, very much classically oriented. Some of these ideas do apply much more to our commercial settings as well. With that. But again, this is really more classically focused today here. So I hope that these ideas are helpful. And again, when do you apply this? How do you work on this here? Go through with your scales, go through work with your etudes. I really love using, repeated notes. So for example, taking a set of 4/16 notes. And being really conscious of how I'm using my air, and that's my primary focus, and then just trying to use as little tongue as possible, and really listening, am I getting the speed, the tempo that I want? Pull up that metronome and make sure, am I keeping everything even? And do my notes still sound good? Is there still duration, length to them? Or is it getting heavy or thuddy? Are the notes not locking in place? If that's happening, maybe I need to go back and make sure I'm not using too much tongue in all of that. Now, again, this can be a little bit of an oversimplification here as well. So if you have more specific questions about this, or if you're having issues with this or anything else I might be able to help with, please feel free to leave a comment, get some input from other members of the trombone brass community here. Or, of course, you can shoot me an email at tromboneshop@schmidtmusic.com as well. And hopefully this will be a great idea for you to apply to your daily practice sessions. Another thing to think about working on. So I hope you enjoy practicing this week, and please keep making music.